Darkness draped the landscape as we hurtled down the desolate highway, the hum of the engine and our laughter the only company. The glow of the dashboard clock read 2:37 a.m., a late hour to be navigating the winding roads that led home. We were 5 friends on a road trip, bonding over stories and snacks, the warmth of camaraderie shielding us from the chill outside. The rhythmic thump of a flat tire brought our merriment to an abrupt halt. Swearing under our breaths, we pulled over to the shoulder, the headlights casting eerie shadows on the barren trees that loomed like specters in the night. The spare tire, however, had other plans. It lay deflated in the trunk, a cruel twist of fate in our journey. A quick Google search yielded a promising lead. A scrapyard, not too far away, supposedly open 24 hours. Desperation outweighed skepticism, and we followed the flickering GPS signal into the heart of nowhere. The road narrowed, winding through thick woods as if nature itself was closing in on our unsuspecting souls. An unsettling silence settled around us, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath our tires. The GPS cheerfully announced our arrival at Johnson Salvage Yard, but there was no sign of life. Only a flickering neon sign, barely visible through the fog, eerily spelling out, "Open." Reluctantly, we entered the yard, the rusty gate creaking ominously behind us. Towering mounds of discarded metal parts surrounded us, their twisted forms resembling the remnants of forgotten nightmares. An unsettling feeling clung to the air, a palpable tension that burrowed into our bones. We spotted a dimly lit office, the door ajar, and cautiously pushed it open. The room was filled with an odd assortment of trinkets, faded posters, antique dolls, and dusty typewriters. A figure hunched over a cluttered desk, their back to us. Clearing our throats, we announced our predicament. Without turning, the scrapyard owner, a wiry man with greasy hair clinging to his scalp, muttered that he had the perfect tire for us. Relief washed over us until we noticed the peculiar grin stretching across his face, a sinister curve that sent shivers down our spines. As he led us deeper into the labyrinth of discarded memories, the atmosphere grew thicker, the air rife with an unspoken menace. We reached a secluded corner where our tire supposedly awaited, but the man's unsettling behavior escalated. His gaze bore into us, a feral hunger gleaming in his eyes. Panic tightened our chests, but the man's next move left us paralyzed. He produced a rusted rifle, the metal groaning in protest as he aimed it at us. His voice, a gravelly whisper, warned us of the consequences of leaving. The scrapyard, it seemed, was a trap, a web woven to ensnare unsuspecting travelers. Our escape was a frenzied blur, adrenaline coursing through our veins as we zigzagged between towering heaps of scrap metal. The distant echo of footsteps pursued us, the owner's threats slicing through the night. The cold sweat on our brows mirrored the fog that clung to the surroundings. Just as despair threatened to consume us, the distant hum of an approaching vehicle spread us for war. We burst through the gate, our breaths ragged, the silhouette of the scrapyard owner fading into the darkness behind us. Gasping for air, we sped away, leaving the nightmare behind. The moon cast an ethereal glow on the winding road, a beacon guiding us to safety. As we put distance between ourselves and the malevolent scrapyard, a realization dawned. We had narrowly escaped a horror beyond our wildest imagination. If you find yourself on a desolate road with no end in sight, be careful. Be wary of the seemingly helpful hands that guide you, for in the darkness, monsters often wear friendly faces. When the fog of uncertainty clouds your judgment, let the headlights of reason guide your way. In the shadows, danger lurks, waiting for a moment of vulnerability to pounce. Trust, but verify and remember. Sometimes the road less traveled leads to unspeakable horrors. Once upon a moonless night in the desolate coastal town of Ravens Cove, my best friend Emma and I found ourselves in a predicament that would haunt our dreams for years to come. The salty air was thick with an eerie silence as we stumbled out of her father's ramshackle house, the echoes of his drunken rage still ringing in our ears. With no transportation and our phones long dead, we stumbled along the deserted streets, shadows dancing in the dim glow of flickering streetlights. Desperation clung to us like a second skin until we stumbled upon a rusty old phone booth. its glass panels etched with the graffiti of forgotten conversations. Relief washed over us as we huddled inside, the claustrophobic space providing a false sense of security. Little did we know that our respite would be short-lived. The rhythmic hum of an approaching engine pierced the silence, and a dilapidated van emerged from the darkness, its headlights cutting through the night like the eyes of a hungry predator. As the van slowed to a stop, a chill ran down my spine. The air turned heavy with a palpable malevolence as the doors cracked open, revealing a group of shadowy figures obscured by the van's dim interior lights. Their faces remained hidden, shrouded in darkness, sending a wave of unease through us. A voice, gravelly and menacing, shattered the silence. "Need a ride, ladies?" Fear gripped us, and our minds raced with thoughts of escape. The streetlights flickered ominously as if the town itself was warning us of the impending danger. Emma and I exchanged a nervous glance, realizing we were trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Reluctantly, we stepped towards the van, our hearts pounding in our chests like a tribal drum signaling an impending sacrifice. As we approached, the sinister grins of the men became visible, their intentions clear as day. Panic set in, and we turned to flee, but the men moved faster, surrounding us with predatory precision. Just when all hope seemed lost, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night. Panic flashed across the faces of the menacing men, and with a cacophony of curses, they fled into the shadows, leaving us trembling in the wake of their malevolence. The police arrived, and the nightmarish ordeal came to an end. As we clung to each other, safe at last, the flashing red and blue lights painted the scene with an unsettling glow. The officers assured us that they would patrol the area more frequently, but the echoes of that night lingered in the air like an unshakable curse. In the aftermath, Emma and I vowed never to speak of that night, as if uttering the horrors aloud would summon them back. However, the darkness had already seeped into our souls, leaving us forever changed. The twisted tale of Raven's Cove served as a haunting reminder that danger could lurk in the most unsuspecting places. The advice we gleaned from that harrowing experience was simple yet profound. If a situation feels wrong, it probably is. Don't dismiss the gut feeling that sends shivers down your spine. It might just save your life. As the story ends, the camera zooms in on a single, haunting image: the abandoned phone booth, a silent witness to the unspeakable horrors that unfolded on that fateful night. The lingering question remains: what other secrets does Raven's Cove hold in its ominous embrace? It was a tranquil afternoon in the countryside. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields. I sat on the porch, sipping my tea and enjoying the serenity that rural life offered. My daughter played in the yard, her laughter echoing in the stillness. As the day wore on, the sky deepened into hues of orange and pink. The distant chirping of crickets added to the soothing symphony of nature. Little did I know the tranquility of our remote home would soon be shattered by an uninvited guest. The first sign of trouble came as a subtle whisper in the wind. It was a sound I couldn't quite place, a soft murmur that danced on the edges of my consciousness. I dismissed it, attributing it to the usual creaks and groans of an old house. Yet the unease lingered, creeping up my spine like an icy finger. Night descended, bringing with it a cloak of darkness that enveloped the landscape. I tucked my daughter into bed, her innocent eyes fluttering shut. As I made my way to the living room, the whisper returned, more pronounced this time. It seemed to emanate from her room. I hesitated, my heartbeat quickening. Every parental instinct screamed at me to investigate. With cautious steps, I approached her door, the wooden floor groaning beneath me. The air grew heavy, charged with an otherworldly energy. I pushed the door ajar and peeked inside. The room was bathed in a pale moonlight, revealing the familiar contours of toys and furniture. But there, in the corner, a shadowy figure stood, barely perceptible. My breath caught in my throat as I struggled to make sense of the intruder's form. It seemed human, yet ethereal. Fear gripped me, rendering me immobile. The whisper intensified, now a dissonant chorus that reverberated through the walls. Panic set in, and I grabbed my daughter, fleeing to my father-in-law's house nearby. His stern expression softened with concern as I relayed the eerie encounter. Together, we returned to my home, armed with flashlights and determination. The room, once occupied by an otherworldly presence, was now eerily still. We combed through every inch, finding nothing but the residue of fear that lingered in the air. Days turned into weeks, and the incident faded from memory. Life resumed its peaceful rhythm, but an unspoken tension lingered in the air. My father-in-law insisted on installing new locks and reinforcing the windows, a precaution against the unknown. One evening, as I sat on the porch, gazing into the starlit expanse, a chilling realization gripped me. I had never seen my father-in-law that day. He had been away, visiting a friend in a neighboring town. The truth hit me like a thunderbolt. The figure in my daughter's room, the silent intruder, had not been human. It had taken the form of my father-in-law, exploiting the trust I placed in familiar faces. A shiver ran down my spine, and I recoiled in horror. What did it want? Why did it choose our home? The questions lingered, unanswered and unsettling. As the video draws to a close, I leave you with a haunting piece of advice. In the silence of the night, when the wind carries whispers that defy explanation, listen. Sometimes, the most terrifying intruders wear the faces of those you hold dear. Be vigilant, for the unknown may be closer than you think, silently watching, waiting, and whispering in the dark.